Hey guys, how y'all doing? Hopefully everybody's doing safe out there. We've got we're coming down to module three. We've got our last lecture right here on Monday. We told you that this is a big guy, heavy hitter. I know some of the demos that I've done normally would take once a demonstration is done, it takes about a couple of days to do each worksheet. There's four total worksheets combined. The last one is involving timing chain service where we have to actually take the timing chains off. We would be doing it on the 2.4s and on regular OHV type engines where you would have an opportunity to do that, but obviously we're not able to do that at this point. Um, but Typically, if you just follow procedures on timing chains, that's the best way to go on it. Until you've done one, the one might take you quite a bit of time to do because a lot of late model vehicles or timing chain replacements are pretty difficult to do, and the access of the timing chains are very difficult. That's why they pay better. A lot of them require the removal of the engine, to drop the engine so you can gain access to it. I know we did one in the shop one time on the PT Cruiser, and it entailed dropping the engine, but I kind of got away without doing that, and kind of lowered the engine, kind of worked with the jack, and matter of going up and down with the engine, taking out the front mount so that way we can put that time belt on, and the crankshaft seal and the camshaft seals along with that, and turned out good after that. But on page 580, excuse me, 502 in your book on figure 23-1 on a Jaguar, that's what it looks like. You got two main timing chains in there. You've got it's a 4-quad type of engine, and you've got an auxiliary camshaft chain on the other side of it. So these are normally marked in with plated links, colored links that you have to line up the links to the corresponding index number or index tick mark on there. On the 2.4s that we were going to do, you've got 3 links, 2 links on the top on a double overhead camshaft design, and you have 1 colored link on the bottom of the crankshaft. So, but typically, you still have to follow procedures on it. Always consult the procedures in the service manual when you're doing timing chains, to keep in mind that when we finish putting the timing chain on, we're going to rotate that engine twice just to make sure everything's going to be okay with it and it's going to turn properly and the links line up. That's the most important part right there. With timing chain problems, of course, after prolonged time of wear and tear on them, we can have compression issues, drivability concerns, because the chain will start to incur a lot of slacking and movement. So they can actually make noise coming in and hitting the cover, which we had one on a Chevy Cavalier at one point where the timing chain was clattering, and it only happened among startup. So in other words, when you started the vehicle up, we hear that clack, 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 clattering. That was the chain rubbing real fast against the timing chain cover, and eventually it would quiet down. And that was because the timing chain guides were worn on it. So upon removing the cover, we found that out, and we wanted replacing the guides and the timing chain along with the crankshaft seal and the camshaft seals, and took care of the problem right there. No more chain clattering among startup. So these are the things that you'll run into time and time again. Of course, anytime you jump timing tooth, you're gonna lose compression, and that can be evident by hooking up a vacuum gauge as well. We can see where we have low compression steady, and so look at that. When we pull the cover off, we can see if the timing marks line up by rotating the crankshaft to number 1 piston at top dead center, and locating where the time marks are and making sure they're aligned correctly. And if they're not, there's your problem right there. We need to get the timing chain replaced. Timing chains, there is no service interval to get them replaced like timing belts are. We told you earlier, 50,000, 60,000 miles. It depends on the manufacturer. Timing chains, they tell you just to let it run. Just let it run until it starts exhibiting some issues. If you wanted to, you can change them out at 126,000 miles. If you wanted to go ahead and do that for regular maintenance, that would require some work, of course, but it's not. They don't really. Manufacturer doesn't really specify to do that. They just say run it until we start having timing chain issues with it. Uh, Typically, the timing chain deflection, there's a deflection. It should not go into more than 13 millimeter or half an inch of side-to-side play movement. And if you do have that, it needs to be replaced. Um, Installing timing chains on page 503. Again, look for the dots, lines, circles, or other type of symbols. The 2.4s have a diamond cut shape on there that you have to line up and link. Like I said, we got to consult the service manual because everyone's different for every type of particular vehicle that's out there. But typically, we'll have to make sure we consult with the manufacturer specifications to determine what we need to do to line up everything correctly so the vehicle will run the way it should be, smooth. Okay, the vehicle should not be running rough after you put a timing chain or timing belt on it. If it's running rough, that means you got a problem with it. It's not set correctly. Okay. On the crankshaft sprocket, typically when we have the camshaft gears lined up on dowels, a Woodruff key, if you will, that we look at replacing it, or a pinch bolt that's on there. On the crankshaft, we have a snout where we have a Woodruff key where the crank gear rides onto. And like I mentioned earlier, if we're going to do a timing belt or a timing chain, you would want to go ahead and replace the crankshaft seal and the camshaft seal, or seals if you have a double overhead camshaft system. And the reason being is because if you do not change those seals out and you just replace the timing belt or timing chain, and it's got over 100,000 miles on it, it is going to leak on you, and it will come back on you. And then you're gonna have to take the timing chain or the timing belt off again, and it's just, you're gonna do it for free. So it's a better practice to go ahead and charge the customer up front for doing the timing chain and the camshaft seals, or camshaft seal and the crankshaft seal, because you're there, you have it open, might as well replace it anyway. Of course, you're charging them the labor for doing that. It's not for free. So you got to make sure that you do that. Otherwise, you're going to have a comeback again. Okay? And then you will have to replace it for free. So on page 504 kind of shows you a crankshaft seal on the front end, and that's what this guy's replacing. And of course, you're using the sprocket driver to help reinstall the sprocket onto the snout end of the crankshaft. Typically, when we put that together, especially on the camshaft, they want you to put Loctite on the bolt so it doesn't come off. So usually a red type of Loctite material would be pretty good to put on there because it's got a good tensile strength on it, and that'll hold it to prevent the cam bolt from backing off. We've got timing chain tensioner. We talked about the tensioners last time. We got the different types that they have out there, all pressure fed. We have a type of tensioner that has a pulley on it, where it's got a bearing internally inside of it, and that can actually help us with making sure that we have enough tension on it by adjusting it properly. Okay, normally there's some have an Allen bolt that goes in there that you have to use an Allen wrench to move it because it's cam driven. And it actually could help put tension on it, and then a lock nut that you got to tighten afterwards. So, like I said, just consult with your manufacturer specifications on that. That way we know exactly when to do that. So, again, timing belts are something that we could look at doing there, and it's better to do it while the engine's running perfectly fine. That's why most manufacturers recommend 60,000 miles getting them replaced. So kind of keep that in mind there. Page 506 kind of shows you one on a Honda there, how they kind of get that guy set up over there. The bottom on figure 2313, it shows you the camshaft sprocket bolt along with the camshaft dowel that sometimes they have to move into. Now, see that little notch on the top of the valve cover right there, that V notch. Normally you would have a dot that goes on the camshaft sprocket to line up with the V notch on the valve cover. So, like I said, everyone's different. Until you've done quite a few of them here and there, I've done a lot of them. But until you've done one in specific, and you kind of know what to do, like especially when you're at a dealership and you've done so many of them, like at Nissan's. I can tell you where the time marks are on Nissan vehicles. Done so many of them at a 60K service. But if you're working on different cars, obviously we have to look it up and kind of go with that. And the illustration I'm talking to you about as far as that V-notch in the valve cover is on page 507 on figure 2315. It shows a typical OHC engine with a timing belt installed. So it shows how that dial pin on the mark lines up with the top of the valve cover, and that one has a tensioner on it with the spring that's spring loaded. Done quite a few of those that I've seen in the past. But sometimes when you're doing a timing chain or timing chain or even timing belt, sometimes they want you to actually have something to hold it in place, like a wrench, or in one instances when I worked at a Dodge dealership on a Shadow 2.5 dual overhead cam system, they wanted us to use two 11/32 drill bits to go through the camshaft sprocket that linked up to a hole in the back of the cylinder head, just to hold the sprockets together, so when you go to put tension on the chain or the belt, it would not shift and move on you. Because if it shifts and moves on you, you're going to be off a tooth. On a lot of vehicles, if you're off a tooth, the vehicle may run, but it's going to run horrible. On some vehicles, it won't even run at all. So that's why proper valve timing alignment on timing belts and timing chains are so critical on today's cars. Okay, just kind of keep that in mind. We will be looking at again on probably Wednesday. I'll do a good little review for a Module 3 assessment. We'll be sending the Module 3 assessment online for you guys to look at doing for grade, obviously. So that will be probably opening up on Thursday and probably close on you on Saturday night. Okay, so you got Thursday to Saturday night to finish that. Okay. Hope everybody's good. Be safe out there, and look forward to our next lecture that will be coming up Wednesday on Module 3 assessment. Okay, review for that one. It's a big guy, and like I said, just hang in there and be safe. We'll get through this. All right, y'all take care.